19th centuries, was it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because this novel was based on true story.
Yes, there's been many things that are not good in this country and that they did wrong.
Yeah.
And that we're still trying to fix it. Hopefully, one day, every country has got its own problems.
Yeah.
But nothing is perfect anywhere.
I see.
Okay, now, shall we wait a little bit longer? What do you think, Miss Anna or Triana? Shall we start or shall we wait?
Yes, Anna, I think we can start.
I think we can start too.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to sit down yesterday and do a little summary of what we talked about and put something together because we discussed quite a few things yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm going to share my screen with you because I need to have a PowerPoint presentation or something to keep my thoughts with. So let's see. Can you see this?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Yeah. So if we're going to start talking about the writing and editing and go into more details, I think what is important when we do this type of writing is that academic writing, as you know, needs to be clear and precise and simple. It's not like writing some kind of literature or a story. This is about facts, really. And I actually, after our discussion yesterday, I looked up what Anita was talking about and actually found what she had written and what had been published. But I also found a few other analyses of the contrast between Bahasa and English that have been published after her publication. And I thought it was quite interesting because just scanning through the documents quickly, this is like a 5-minute read, I realized that the language was in English, so it was published in English, but what I was looking for was that it would be, like I said, precise and simple and clear, which it wasn't really in all its parts. Let's see, have we got Anita here now, or she's still to log on? But I thought it was interesting, and I downloaded a couple of articles, and I thought that I might email the links to her or email them to her so she can have a look at what's happened after she published her journal. So I think that before we start to write, we need to really find out what the purpose of this is. And I mean, what sets it apart from other publications is that in our publication, we present our research outcomes and we report on our findings. I mean, the purpose of the exercise is to impart knowledge and to further develop the body of work within a discipline, with yours being English, obviously, and to recommend new solutions. We're saying we have had a look at this, we have researched, these are the outcomes. That's what leads things forward. To offer a more current view than textbooks. As you know, textbooks get outdated quite quickly, and our research wants to show what the latest findings are. And to provide credible information in this absolute nightmare jungle that we live in at the moment, with information overload and coming from all directions at the same time, it's really important that what we publish in our academic journal is based on facts. And we are the absolute holders of this information. We've done the research, and quite often, this research will be evaluated by other experts who will also they'll build on what you publish, or they'll come back to you and want to have a discussion about it. So to start the whole process, we talked about this yesterday, so this is just a brief overview. We said that we need to know why we're writing, what the audience needs, and what we're hoping to achieve by publishing this communication. We also need to know what the standards are that this communication must comply with. And for instance, that might be legal, organizational, or other standards that has to be considered when we're writing and publishing. We also talked about why writing a journal must include research of the audience. So when we write, we must keep in mind, who are we writing this for? Who will receive the information? What do they already know? What do they need to know? And what action, if any, do we want them to take? What do we do with this information once we have given it to them? What do we want them to do? Do we want them to continue the research? Do we want to implement this in their day-to-day work? There has to be a reason behind it. People are not just going to read what you publish unless there is a reason in it for me, because that's the first question that the person, the receiver of the information, will ask. What's in it for me? So to structure this, we go through this whole process of writing an academic journal. It starts with the planning, obviously. In your mind, you have some kind of idea what research is going to achieve. You then do your research, you get your facts and figures, you have all this information. Well, if you're anything like me, I'll have sticky labels everywhere that's got notes on it. I make notes on my phone. I make notes in my list. I make notes everywhere. And I get to a point where I sit and think, oh God, I've got to organize this. In my head, I might have it, but no one else has seen it and no one else would understand unless I put this in different sections and departments, and I decide what's important, what's not important, what's going to be 1, 2, 3, where do I start? And we also talked about this yesterday, that you have to have some kind of draft plan for where you're going to put in information and what you're going to write about. Then when you start the actual writing, it doesn't have to follow the exact steps in the plan. When I start writing, I will start with the part of my plan that I feel more comfortable with and it's going to be easy. I don't start from the top and go down, because my introduction might be something that I want to write last. So I always start with the easiest part first, because I know that, as with most human beings, if we can achieve something relatively easy and then go from easy to harder, step by step, we feel more successful if we do that, and we feel like we're actually achieving something. Whereas if you start with the hardest part, it's almost mentally impossible to convince yourself that you're going to do the other parts too. So you do all your writing, you do your editing, and then of course we go into revising what you have put together. We talked about style guides yesterday. We touched on it. And I don't know really to this today what your style guide is for the university, but lots of universities have it now. And like I said, it brings in all your communication at all different levels. It's probably a good idea to put one together. Because the style guide will tell you, you know, about punctuation and spacing and capitals, business and product names and trademarks, and the prepared titles that you will use when you put your academic journal together. And the ones that I have looked at, and which I'm going to send to Anita, is 2 or 3 that have been published by Indonesian universities. And they basically set out very similarly. So I'm assuming that you will do something similar when you set it out. A standard report format will have a title page with a table of contents. You have your abstract, you have your introduction, you present your methods, you present your results and recommendations. You may have a discussion part, you have your references, you have your tables and figures, and then you have the appendix at the end, which may be your references to other research that's already been done. Have we got a writing plan and content outline? Some of these people now that have already started on their academic journal. Can anyone tell me if you have a plan and if you have a content outline? Something that you have put together. What about, who shall I ask? 13 participants here and no one's putting their hand up. Okay, so what about Bang Bang? Have you got a plan for your academic journal that you're going to write?
Hello, Bambang, are you there? Bambang. Okay, no, Bambang.
I don't think he's there.
Yeah, I think he's not there, Anna.
Yeah. So what about Amy? Have you got a plan?
I'm so afraid you asked me about this, and that I written the chat already, say not yet. I'm sorry. Oh no.
Okay. Not yet. Well, your homework for next week will be everyone has to write the plan.
I do hope
draft
so.
plan. I will come down hard on you like I do on the students normally on Monday or Tuesday. Not. But I think for next week, if you can put something together, just in draft form, a plan for this academic journal that you're going to put together. And I mean, for those of you who have already done your research and have already got an idea of what you're going to write about, it's probably not going to be that hard for you. For anyone else, especially the people that are not talking today, you might have a little bit more work to do going forward. But I think, like I said, between now and next week, if you can, or while I'm in India, I want to see a draft plan from everyone that's going to be writing. All right.
Mrs. Anna,
Yes.
I just want to share about what I've done in my thesis, not this paper, because this paper we have already got until findings. So when you say that we need to have some plan, it's already planned already. But what I did in my thesis, for instance, when we are talking about background of the study, what I have read from the guidance given by my lecturers. So what we should do in background, I just put dot. For instance, like the first one talking about the variable one, and the next one followed by the second variable, and then next because I have so many variables, so the way how I did writing and that section, this really helped me because we got the position where we put the idea. So at the end of the background, I got a very solid, hopefully, because it haven't done. At the end, it will have a solid information about what we are going to do in our writing. And then also by having this kind of plan, we will avoid of ignoring one of the variable later on, rather than we just write scratching without having plan. This is what I have done, but unfortunately it haven't finished. But what I did is giving plan, for instance, like variable, this is for variable 1, the next one is variable 2, the next one is variable 3, and after that we need to join it together up to we got a very solid background at the end.
Yeah, like I said, this is just a draft. Does everyone know what a draft? Yeah. It's nowhere near the finished product. It's just that I want to see your ideas on the paper so that there is some kind of logical following. It's a draft.
Yeah.
Nothing is set in concrete. You can change it as many times as you like.
Yes.
That's all fine. Because you might start working on it and then you think, no.
And change it again.
That's not right. Yeah, I'm going to change this. Yeah. So the draft is the draft. It's the first step, really. Like I said, I think some of you have gone beyond the draft, and that's good. But some people probably need to start with a draft plan so we know where we're heading in the future. But it needs to start. That's the whole thing. We need to start.
Yes, yes.
Because otherwise, well, what did you say the cutoff date was? July? July something?
Yeah, July.
Yeah,
July.
And you know, my time finishes on the 5th of August, so I can't read 70 academic journals.
Actually, this is not 70 because
in
some
one
of
week. No, but there's the other departments too. It's not just the English department, a few other people too.
Yeah. We understand that.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too mid-June, and then someone says, I haven't even started yet. Can you read my draft? Can you read this? Can you read that? Can you read what?
Yeah.
So I think everyone needs to start now, because we're
Yeah.
already in April. And it
Mhm.
seems like it's a long time, but you all have
Mhm.
full-time jobs. You already work 6 days a week.
Yes.
You already
Yes.
have to deal with all these students and everything else.
Yeah.
So, like I said, get the draft together.
Mhm.
Just, I don't expect 15 pages of text.
Mm.
Just do dot points. Bam, bam, bam.
Is it possible
put it
we
simple.
we start giving our draft in Google Drive this week?
Yeah,
Okay.
can't see why not.
Yeah, because I think some of us has already got the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the people who have already got the draft,
Mhm.
you're lucky. You've done well.
Yeah, we will send it this week. I hope so.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
And for people who haven't finished the draft, you might have to ask your friends who have finished theirs for help.
Yeah.
Or a little bit of support. But I think taking that first step is always the hardest.
Yeah.
Once you get started, it just becomes much easier. And like I said, at this stage, if you show me your draft plan, I'm not going to sit there and check for spelling mistakes or punctuation or grammar or anything. That's not the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise is that you get started, you have a plan, which may change more or less, but there is a plan in place and you start working towards. I'm sounding like I'm talking to the students now.
We are students.
I know. I think this is the best class I've ever had. More fun anyway. Okay. So once we start in review, hold on. This slide probably shouldn't even go here. I'm just going to change it. Like I said, I put this together last night. So when you have your draft plan, we can then go back and sort of look at it and say, okay, are these sections in the right sequence? You know, is 1, 2, and 3 in the right order? And then maybe you think, oh no, number 4 should come in as number 2, and then I'm going to move number 3 further down. And that's perfectly fine. You probably have by then written a few headings or some kind of description of what you're actually going to put in. And you have this template, like I said, that you can follow, keeping in mind the requirements of the audience or where you're going to publish your finalized document. I think it's always a good idea, like I said, to review and say, you know, is there any technical requirements, any legislation that comes into place? I don't know how it is in Indonesia, but here, every time we write something, we have to check and make sure that it's compliant with state and federal legislation, occupational health and safety, and you name it, all the policies and procedures that every organization has. And technical requirements, of course, are coming to place now. So I found this really great picture here about, and you feel free to use this for students when they have to write a paragraph. So once you have your topics, you then have to write your paragraphs, obviously. And I thought this was a pretty good one. When we say that a good paragraph contains topic, sentence, body, and conclusion. Then they have the different layers here in a hamburger or a sandwich, which is the topic sentence up the top, and then you have the supporting sentences underneath, and then you have the conclusion down the bottom. And with academic journals and scientific reading, this is quite often how it's constructed. You have the topic, then you have the sentence that states what you want to say, and then you have all the sentences underneath that proves what you claim up the top, and then you have your conclusion. So we talked a little bit yesterday about editing and self-editing, because I said to you that I want you to try and edit what you're writing before you send it off to me or someone else. And these are some of the things that people have used, and it seems to be working for them. So if you're editing your own text or what you have written, quite often if you read out what you have written, your ears will pick up if there's any mistakes with grammar or anything like that. When you read it, you're obviously not going to pick up spelling, but you can pick up the syntax. Use any tools that you like, all of them, all of the spelling and grammar checker. And like I said, don't forget to set your proofing language to use English. I forgot about changing it over to Australian English this morning, and I sent an email off, and someone responded back and said to me, "You're always the one that says we shouldn't be using American spelling." And I went, oh, okay, I did it too. Quite often, if I read something online, I will go and print it out on my printer. And it surprises me how many times I will pick up mistakes and errors or wording that needs to be changed just because I'm reading a printed copy instead of an online copy. And I think that's one way of going about it. Focus on one element at a time. One element can be one paragraph that you read. You stop and just focus on that. Review multiple times, but not over and over again. Have a few breaks in between. Ask for feedback. Feedback is great. Feedback is viewed differently in different contexts. I know, for instance, because I've dealt with a lot of contractors who are writing learning material, and I've noticed that some people, when you give them constructive feedback, every time you do it with some of them, and depending on their background, you have to explain from the start over and over and over again that the reason why I'm giving you this feedback is because I want to help you. I want you to get better, and I want you to improve. And then, of course, you have to add in that I make mistakes too. Everyone does. And they can still sometimes, and I think students are in this category, maybe they're just Australian students, that somehow parents have said to them over and over again, "Oh, you're just wonderful. Everything you do is great." And then they come to university and the lecturer gives them feedback on the first assignment that they hand in. And the feedback will be factual, saying that you haven't referenced this correctly. You need to focus more on your grammar and spelling. This paragraph doesn't make sense in the context, and so forth and so on. And you know how it's always two ways of how you deal with this. One way is that you think, oh, great, I'll do something about it and I'll never make this mistake again, or I'll learn from it. And then we have the other category who says, oh, you are so nasty. I don't like you any longer. I thought you were a nice person. But feedback is great. And I think it's easier to give and receive feedback between colleagues, because when you're colleagues, you really know you're on the same level. Everyone tries to help each other, and anyone that's done this kind of work knows that it's not easy, and we need the people around us to support us and give us their opinion, because if they don't understand what we mean, or it's not clear, then the people that we publish this for are going to think the same thing. It's always good to track changes, I think, so that the author can see what changes you have made, and then to put in little comments and say, I changed this because I thought that maybe you were using the wrong word, or maybe not, because I'm not an expert in this area. But like I said, comments are really good. Tracking changes is good because you can then see how the document develops. Taking breaks, we have to do that, give our brain a rest. And then we also have to conduct a final review. I'm just going to skip ahead here. So I think that it would be a good idea to develop some checklists before you publish anything, if you haven't already got it, because then we can go through and check as we go along. Once we're at the stage where the whole article has been written, we may have gone over it forwards and backwards a few times. We look at the track changes. We decide that this is really good. I think it's good to have a checklist because it's otherwise easy to miss something. So if you have a checklist where you check that all references and citations are compliant with the citation style that we have chosen, which you told me yesterday is APA, am I right? Yes. And if you have numbers, calculations that someone has actually sat down and checked that they are correct. Decimal points, I mean, what's the difference between 10,000 and 100,000? Well, it's really big. And I've seen some academic journals where people haven't checked their numbers, like I said, or the significant figures that I've quoted in the text, and made sure that if you say 50%, it's actually 50%, so on. Abbreviations and acronyms, if we use them, that when we first present them, we have an explanation to what they mean, all of them. Never taking for granted that people will understand what we mean. More than likely they won't. Tables, figures, and captions, checked for accuracy, clarity, proper labeling. Is the label above the spreadsheet? Does that actually describe what's in the spreadsheet? Headers and footers on consistency, also quite often overlooked, that the headers are on page 1, 2, 3, and then they're missing on the pages following after, or the footers with the page numbers. that they are in order and aligned, quite often easy to miss. We've checked the layout and design to make sure that it's readable. Don't you just hate it when you pull something up, it's PDF, then the text is like this and you have to sit like that and try to read it, especially if you're old like me, it makes it really hard. We want it to be easy for everyone to read, that the text is aligned and there's consistent spacing. And there's paragraph breaks. There's no double spaces where there shouldn't be. I mean, we all like it when the same font is used. Sometimes you can say that the spacing between the lines on page 1 is 1.15, and then you come to page 3 and it's 2. It's quite a big difference. But everything in the document aligns, because that's what's going to make it look professional. That's what we want. Then we come down to the grammar and spelling. So we make sure that the sentences are clear and easy to understand, that there is a logical flow. Consistency with regards to punctuation, capitals, formatting, and consistency in terminology. We don't call the same thing 2 different things. That happens also quite a lot. If we decided that this is what we're going to call something, we use the same word through the text. The margins, line spacing we talked about, headings and subheadings, makes it easier for the reader to understand. This is a heading, this is the subheading, these are bullet points, so forth and so on. And we want to make it look professional, clean, easy to read. In an academic journal, we don't want any fancy fonts, different colors, all that those things are for a different type of audience. Talked about tracking changes, and I think that's really important for that the editor does, whoever it may be, if it's one of your colleagues, your supervisor, or if it's me, that we track the changes in the review menu so you can see, like I said, what has been done. Because if changes are done by an editor, it can actually change the context, and only you as the researcher really know what you want to say. The editor is not the expert, the subject matter expert. You are the subject matter expert, and that's why we need to use track changes, because you've done your research, we haven't. And when we track the changes in the document, we can see what the original was, and we can see any markups, and we can see the final and the final showing markup, which is going to help everything. Because at the end of the day, you're probably going to need approval before this can be published. And just in case that down the track you publish something and then there is disagreement or issues with the document later on, if you can show your track changes and show the progress of reviews and feedbacks and the final approval being given, then if there is a dispute down the track, you have all the evidence in black and white, so to say. So what is the evidence of approval? Well, that differs from organization to organization. In some organizations, it can just be an email from a supervisor or a manager, or the dean of the university, or whoever. But there has to be something in writing. like I said, you keep all your track changes from all the different people that have had input into the document. There can be an approval recorded in the minutes of a meeting, but then it has to be there in the minutes after the meeting. Or, like I said, we can have a checklist or ticked up everything, and then that's signed for approval. So I wanted to ask Triana, what process do you use before you publish something at your university?
Oh, I'm sorry. Anna, Miss Trina, you just go out because someone's, yeah,
well, maybe
someone's
you
called
can
her.
answer instead.
Yes.
So do you know about the approval process, Miss Anna?
Oh, yes, I beg your pardon.
What's the approval process at your university before you publish?
No, the process. Oh, we just follow the template from the journal that we are going to publish.
And who makes the decision that this is ready for publishing?
Oh, because I haven't finished yet my my article, so
Yeah.
I haven't decided which journal that I want to send my article. Because I want to make sure I have to finish first. Yeah, and then trying to find out the journal.
Okay, so if I was employed
Mhm,
by University of Pamela
mhm, mhm,
and I had an article that I would like to publish,
mhm.
who would be the person in the English department or somewhere else that says, yes, this is our, up to our standard. Yes, this is ready for publishing. Who makes that decision? Is there a process, or how do you go about it? Do you have a meeting, or how do you do it?
Oh, here in the university, we have like like a rule that in every lectures should they must write the research in at least once in a years. Okay, it can be a personal or with that with the friends. Yeah, and then we have some we have that we have what we call that here Cynthia's in the university. Then I have to sign. Yeah, the first one we have to send the proposals, and then the proposal will be reviewed by the viewer, and then we make the revision. And then the university give us around a year up to the end, yeah, of the research. And then after that, yeah, we have to choose the journal to be published. And then we have to report it to the university.
Okay, so do you report after it's published or before it's published?
After.
Okay.
Yeah, after the article to publish, then we have to report to the university. Then we have to fill the links, yeah, of the journal to prove that our articles already published in the journal.
Okay, so do you decide if you have finished writing an article? So you got your proposal, it's been reviewed, you do your work.
Yes.
Do you then decide that you're going to publish it?
Yes, I have decided.
Yeah, so you can make the decision. Okay, so if Amy wants to publish her work, she can make the decision too.
Well, excuse me, may I add something, Ibu Anna, for a while? So Ms. Haranas, actually we have all the things that Ibu Anna has already mentioned to you, but in deciding what kind of platform of which journal that accept us, this one will be our own authority. If you'd like to have some kind of level, I mean, I personally haven't really feel capable of doing or publishing into such kind of prestigious platform, and that I'll choose the local one in a sense that I'll get easy editing, I'll get easy review, blah blah blah. But there are some people that have a very good quality of journal. They publish internationally with a certain level, for example, Scopus and Q1, 2, and blah blah blah. So that one is the person authority in deciding whom or which journal publication they are choosing.
Okay. Now I just need to ask a question because different universities have different processes for
Yes.
going.
Absolutely.
And here it's quite strict. Before you publish anything, you have to have approval. And sometimes, like I said, it goes all the way up to the dean of the university or the vice dean or someone like that, or the chancellor. Or quite often there is a board, publishing board. So you might have approached an organization or somewhere where you want to publish and you have written your academic journal and fulfilled all their requirements. But before you can actually hand it over, it quite often has to go to the academic board, and they will read through and then make the decision that, yes, this
Unfortunate.
is ready to be viewed by the rest of the world, basically. So
we haven't
they
got it.
and yes, and that's in one way understandable, because many of them are worried about once it's been published, you can't really take it down. And then, there's been occasions where there's been problems with plagiarism, or the research hasn't really been based on, or the facts, the outcomes haven't really been based on good research, and so forth and so on. So some universities are really, really particular about what can be published and what can't be published, because they're saying we want really good quality. We don't want quantity. What we publish has to be quality, because, like I said, when we put things out on these platforms and someone in the whole world uses Google and does a little search, then they can find everything wherever. Whereas back in the days when you published something and it had to be printed, someone actually had to come to the right outlet, pay, get their printed copy, and take it home. And if there was anything in there that they didn't agree with or wasn't good, there would just be one person who would come back and say, look, I don't think this is quite right. But now once it's out online, it's basically too late. There might be thousands of people that disagree with you and are not happy. And, I think many schools, high schools and universities are very particular about their reputation in that regard. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the more checks we have before something is published, and the more we have different people look at it, people giving their approval, I think that's a really good thing. Because it's also got to do with feedback and how we deal with it. Now,
Yeah,
questions
Anna?
from you.
Yeah.
Yes?
And then there is a question in the chat from Ibu Rizky. Okay, can you read?
Right.
Or
Okay,
I
hold
will
on.
read for
I'm
you.
just gonna,
Mhm.
yeah. And how about the essay? How about the essay? Is it counted as writing academic as well? Not really, no. Academic journals follow a very set way of expressing yourself, whereas an essay you can use much more language that's describing or elaborative or whatever you choose. An essay can be like, one of these novels, whereas academic writing is always based on fact and is very straightforward. Do I have to do all the plan like you explained before to help me write better? Well, it will help you write better if you do the plan. It definitely, planning helps, even though sometimes we think, I'm just going to write it. I don't need to plan. That usually doesn't work very well, especially not when you're doing academic writing. I think with academic writing, if you were writing a novel, like you were going to write something like Harry Potter, that would probably start with an idea in your head about a child that was a wizard, and the story would develop in your imagination as you are writing. But that's a novel. It's all made up. Whereas academic writing, like I said, is always based on facts and figures and research. And the language that we use is quite short, concise, to the point, no much elaboration at all. People read this from a research point of mind, and that's how it is. But if you don't want to do the planning and you think you can do it anyway, be my guest. I couldn't do it, and I don't think anyone else here that's written an academic journal could do it either. All right, have I answered your question? You can give me a thumbs up if I have. Has anyone else got any questions that we need to answer today? I'm going to turn this off so I can see you instead.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the list. I do really like about it. So maybe I will also use the list to check my students' complication in writing their articles as a what is it, a kind of checking whether they already in the proper way in writing their articles. May I use?
Yeah, I think lists are good because you go through it in a sort of step-by-step process. You know that you haven't missed anything if you do that. I can put this list in a Excel spreadsheet for you,
Thank
or
you.
template,
Yeah.
and I'll send it around, and then you can just add or delete.
Yeah.
And there might be other things that you want to check that I don't know of that you need to check from your end. But I found that it's the only way that I can deal with some of the contractors that are writing for me, because they quite often will send unfinished work. And so I send this list to them, and then they have to tick off and say yes or no. And then I get them to sign down the bottom to say that they've checked everything. And that seems to work, I would say. If there's anything after that, it will just be minor things to do. Whereas before I had the checklist and I made them check their own work, basically the first editions that I would receive would always have to go back. And then even when the person has said, yes, I've checked it so many times, but there's so many different types of checking that you have to do. So it's quite easy to miss something. And like I said, I think checklists have got a very good role to fill. You don't have to do all the checking yourself. In fact, you may use the checklist for your first finished work that you think is okay, and then you go in and do a checklist. But when you then ask someone else to review it and you send them your article for review, send them your checklist too, so they can see what you've done, and they can have a look and see if there's anything that's been missed.
Thank
All
you.
right. So we'll do that. But like I said, if I send you the checklist, you can decide what you want to use and what you don't want to use.
Okay. Yeah. May I use also your checklist for our journal? We have journal in our department, but it in Indonesian. Mine journal is about community service. I think it's also good to send it after I translate it to the reviewer. It will help them in checking whether everything is there already.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sounds like a good idea. Anyone else? Questions? I think the reviewing and checking, it's a skill that you develop. The more you do it, the better you get at it. I know that now because, like I said, I spent the last few years alternating between American English and Australian or British English. And I just need to see a text like this. If I know that it's going to be published here in Australia, I see all the spelling mistakes straight away. And people say to me, how can you just look at it? I say, if I see a page like this, I can see all the Z's. And I know it's American spelling, and vice versa. But I think this is also something that you pick up as you go along. And like I said, the advantage with academic journal writing is that it needs to be concise, short. You don't go into these elaborate long sentences, compound, complex sentences. It needs to be at the point. And there is no room for imagination or, your own interpretations. It always needs to be based on facts, which is a good thing. Okay, so any more questions?
Ms. Harunas, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Well, to be really honest, I'm actually nervous already before even I'm sending or submitting my writing. So I'd like to ask you right now what marking criteria you are going to use in giving the feedback to us. I mean, all I know, well, despite the list that you have already shown us previously, it actually should be standardized when we are having the list of checking. So, I mean, how can you have a conclusion that this journal is possible to be published, even though need a lot or a whole lot of improvement, or this is no way of going to be published. In a very brief one, as you told me yesterday that you might take for about 5 minutes or so to figure out that this is worth it or this is not. So how is it in a very short one, in a brief one? Thank you.
Well, there's two things here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the person who writes the academic journal is the subject matter expert. You're the person who's done the research. You are the person that wants to publish something. That's not for me to decide. If you've done your research and you've done good research and you come to some conclusions, that's great, but you are the expert in that area. That's not my role. My role is to tell you that as a reader, I'll put myself in the reader's shoes. As a reader of your journal, I can understand what you are trying to say. But if I can't understand what you're trying to say, then I have to give you that feedback. I basically would need to put myself in the student's shoes and say to you, okay, you're giving me a message, but I can't interpret it. I don't understand. Now, I will assume that if you publish something in the English department, I will be able to understand what you're writing. If they, like I said, if they publish something in the engineering department, I can only check for, they sometimes speak in other language as far as I'm concerned. Their research, I have no idea sometimes what they're talking about. And I don't want to know either. I can tell them if the language is at the right level. I can't tell them if their research or their conclusions are any good. That's not my role. That's their role. But I can go through the checklist and say, this is concise, this is, grammar is correct, spelling is correct, list goes on and on and on. That's all the feedback I can give them. I'm not a subject matter expert in that area, and I don't want to be either. But you can still give feedback on the academic work, the way it's being presented to them. So it's a little bit different. But like I said, you're the one in charge of your research. You're the one that's publishing. I'm not going to tell you if it's good, bad, or in between. It's not my role. But again, that's why many universities have an academic board that it has to go through first, also to help the person doing the research, that there are other people that are subject matter experts that can give them feedback and tell them, if anything is missing in the engineering project that they have put together. Or, if it's law or if it's accountancy, it's all different. They have their own terminology and they have their own language and they have their own understanding of what's valuable to publish and what's not, if it's at the higher or lower level. But each university has got their own ways of working, basically. But I trust that you are the experts in this topic that you have chosen. And I think you all do really well. I'm very positive. I think this will be good. What do you think? I really
need cell advocacy for the time being.
You'll be fine. I looked at these other articles that had been published and they were quite good. And now we're going to do an even better job this time around. What do you think, Miss Anna? Mrs. Anna Sittepu? Are you hopeful for the future? Do you think this will be really good?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Anna, I'm so sorry. There is a question in the chat.
Okay. It hasn't come up yet here. Hold on. Oh, here we go.
May help you
Yeah,
reading
from Ibu
that.
Nikomang.
Okay, so Nikomang, she missed the discussion yesterday. Well, writing the introduction is the most difficult part. Okay, I always write the introduction last. That's just me.
Wow, this is wonderful. Could you please tell us how to do that? Wow.
How to write the introduction. Well, it's just,
I mean, especially when you put it in the last.
I put it in last because I write about what I've done and what the outcomes have been and the research that I did, all of it. But the introduction to me is just a short version. And quite often, if you want to publish somewhere, they'll say that the introduction can be a maximum of, I don't know, 250 words or 350 words. So in the introduction, basically, you summarize what this article is going to be about. It's to tell the reader what's going to follow after. It's like a hook that you give to them when you say, read my article. This is going to be really interesting. This is about this, this, and this. But if you are struggling with writing the introduction, like I said, I always write it last because I find that much, much easier. Write everything else and we'll do the introduction together. Because I think once you've written one or two, it will be easier for you. Does that answer your question? I can give you, I can get together a few examples too. Did we record yesterday's session, Miss Anna?
Oh, yes.
Recorded?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm thinking
Anna. Yeah, we recorded.
For the people that might have missed out, they can get the recording and listen to it in their own time, because I think that will give a bit more context to this. But like I said, if you finish your journal and all that's missing is the introduction, then just email me and we'll set up a one-on-one Zoom meeting and we'll talk it through. All right? Because I don't want you to sit and think about the introduction and stop there and get held up in your work. It's important, but it's not that important. Do everything else. We can always do the introduction together. All right. But I mean, also look at what other researchers have done. Go online and look at a few other published academic journals and look how they set out, what was the introduction and what followed after, but only look at the English ones. That's the only ones you have to look at. All right. And if anyone doesn't have my email address, it's here again. And don't worry about approaching me directly if you have questions, anything that you want to know. You can always email me and either, like I said, we'll set up a Zoom meeting or we'll have a little email correspondence and work out what kind of help you need. All right. I think that's all from me. I will develop this checklist and I will email it to you, Miss Anna, and then you can email it around to everyone. Like I said, anything else? You have my email address and you can just let me know that you need it.
Yes,
Something.
and we have shared, we have shared your material, your yesterday material. We have shared to the lecturers here, and also,
good.
the recording, we are going to share also to the lecturers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any other good YouTube videos or articles that are about academic journal writing that I found that I think might be valuable for you, I'll just continue to send the links. And I mean, there's two kinds of people: the people who learn more from watching a video, and the people who learn more from actually reading something on paper, just different skills. And I think the younger ones here probably like watching the YouTube clips more. And I think they're really good, most of them. But of course, also when they go through, can stop it and then go back if there's something you don't quite understand, or you might do notes while you're watching it, or think to yourself, oh, yes, I'm going to implement this, I'm going to do this. Some of them make it sound quite easy to do this work, which is what we want. We want you to get to that stage where it's easy. But everyone has to write in English from the start. The only time that you can write in Bahasa. No, you shouldn't write in Bahasa at all, even if you just use Google Translator or a dictionary. And I would assume that for you it's Webster's. If you can't find a word, that's all right, because you're still going to learn. Okay, shall we finish the meeting for today now, if no one else has got any questions?
Yes. Okay, Anna. For the next meeting on 8, what are we going to do here? Because that we have to submit. Yeah, we have to submit the article, or just the draft, or
The draft.
the introduction, or the draft.
Yeah, I think the best thing would be maybe, instead of having everyone on at the same time, how many drafts do you think I will get?
Ya, Bapak Ibu, ya, seperti dikatakan Miss Haranas, we have to send the draft, and then on 8 we can discuss it. Is it right, Anna?
Yes. But I was even thinking that it might be more beneficial if we have smaller groups on the 8th. What do you think? So that we have, I don't know. Okay, send me the draft and I'll give you some feedback. But don't send it at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Or 5 to 9 on Monday morning. If you do that, you will not be my best friends any longer. So it would be really good if you can send it on Sunday at the latest. Saturday is even better. Friday would be fantastic.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay. Yes, Bapak Ibu. Yeah, as Miss Anna said, we try to send it, and then we can discuss it on 8. We have to try it. Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be great if you can do that. And I look forward to reading what everyone is doing. It would be really good. But don't worry about grammar and spelling and all this jazz. I just want to see a draft version. Nothing perfect.
Yes, nothing perfect. Yes, Bapak
And
Ibu.
I'm not
Don't
gonna
worry.
read
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read out any mistakes or anything like that. I'm just gonna try and give you something. Okay. Or we can discuss it all together. You can give feedback to your colleagues too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was looking through my paper here from yesterday. Because the lady, oh, here we go.
Anna,
Yep.
what do you think is better? The lectures, each lecture sent to your email, or we make the G drive in one G drive and then send it to you?
Yeah, that's whichever, doesn't matter.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, it's fine.
Yes.
Now, the lady who, was it Anita that was gonna write about AI and students? It was, wasn't it? Because I found a bit of research that she might be interested in, but I don't have her email address, so I can't send it to her. So is she here today, Anita? She should be here. I need her email address so I can send those articles over.
Yeah. Anita is in here.
Okay.
Bu Anita, tinggal ketik aja kali, Bu.
Hello, is it me? I will not write about what to say artificial intelligence. Maybe wrong, Anita. Anita Sari mungkin, Bu?
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't find my notes either. I wrote it up somewhere.
Yes, Anna, because we have Anitas here. We have two Anita, one Anita Sari, and then one more Anita Kusumawati. Which Anita?
So the Anita that told me yesterday that she wants to write
yesterday.
Yesterday, my research is about contrastive analysis.
Okay. Yeah. There was one person that wanted to write about AI and students cheating. Anyway, I got a few articles, but I can't remember who it was. And that person didn't give me her email address anyway. But she might come to the next class and I can send it over there. All right. We'll find out who it was. If you have any of your colleagues that wants to write about students and cheating in AI, that's the person we're looking for. All right. So I'm going to leave you, and I hope that I'll see you again on Monday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thanks. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Anna.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, see you next Monday.